Okay, we need to fold your paper so it's in thirds, but we don't want to crease it all the way because we're going to try to keep our paper flat. So we're going to roll it over so that this piece and this piece look similar. And when it does, I'll pop that up. You're going to hold the corner and just crease the very top edge. Do not crease the whole thing. Now fold it backwards and crease just the top edge and let it go. Now you're going to take your pencil or your pen, and that becomes your mark for how to divide it into thirds. And then if you rotate the whole thing, you should be able to find something close to the middle and pull a line down. All right. Once you have that done, you're going to take 2 pieces of tape, one for one side, pull the other side across, make sure it's smooth, no folds, and get it down. Then let's label up your paper so you know what you're doing. We're going to do 6 different techniques. Up. All right, go ahead and pause the video if you need so that you can go ahead and finish copying those. All right, you should have a white crayon, a container of salt, a container of white liquid, which is rubbing alcohol, and a pipette. You should also have one of the watercolor sets and a cup of water with a little bit of water in the bottom, about half full. And if your watercolor set is not presently wet or sticky, you can actually touch it to see if it is. You can add 1 little drop of water to each of the colors, but mine is already wet, or at least it looks wet, so I'm just going to add a tiny little drop. All right. So here's the plan. We're going to push these off to the side temporarily, and we're going to use this white crayon, and you're going to color rather heavily. All right, if you don't push down heavy enough, it won't work, but we're going to color rather heavily in that area. And once you have, you're going to dip your brush into your water, wipe off the extra drip, and then select a color that's relatively dark. Rub your brush around in it, wipe off the excess paint, and then just gently go right over the top. And what should happen is if there's enough water and enough wax, you should end up with a beautiful looking resist. All right, the goal is to flatten out those bristles and to overlap all your marks so that you end up with a nice, smooth layout. So there shouldn't be a bunch of zigzag marks. As that dries, it will dry smoothly. Go ahead and pause the video and try it yourself. All right, number 2, pick a new color. Doesn't matter. We're gonna practice another wash. So this time I'll go just a tiny bit slower so you can see it again. Okay, so you load up your brush. It's gotta have a good amount of water, good amount of color. Flatten out those bristles and take that brush back and forth all the way, zigzagging your color. If you run out, you can dip your brush back into a little bit of water, pick up a little more color. Now you're noticing, ooh, yeah, look at that. It didn't work so great. I can see the difference between the two. So I'm gonna go back one more time, and this time I'm gonna flatten it out, but those bristles are laying nice and flat all the way across the space, and I'm zigzagging my color. Now I'm gonna take my paper towel, open it, crumble it, hold it for a count of 2, lift, turn the edge, hold it for a count of 2, lift, find a new edge, and I'm gonna keep doing that until I have created a consistent texture all the way across. There we go. Beautiful. All right, well, my board, we'll do the other one. You're gonna take your little salt container and you're gonna put it right underneath your board so that your board is at an angle. So instead of your board being flat on the table, it's gonna have it popped up like this. We're gonna do the gradient wash over here. You need your water, you need your color picked, and so I will pick my magenta. Get your brush wet, wipe off one drip of color, rub this around in the color, and now we're gonna slide over here. I'm gonna put my watercolor set down because I don't need it anymore. I want 1, 2 zigzags of pure colored. I'm gonna leave that little dot there. Now, when I dip it in my water, I'm literally dipping it in and I'm wiping it on the edge of the cup. Don't shake it. Pick up where your blob was and do 2 more. Dip it in your water, pick it up, do 2 more. Notice how the bristles are flat on the board. I'm not shaking out the brush, and I'm gonna keep pulling it all the way to the bottom of the page. When I get down here to the bottom, I can use my towel, I can dry off my brush, and it will act like a little sponge, and it will pick up all of that extra color down there at the bottom. And then we're just gonna let it go. But it should be one nice smooth gradient. It shouldn't have any zigzags because we did the wash technique, but this time, every time we zigzagged, we went back and we took a little bit of the paint off. Zigzagged, took a little paint off. Zigzagged, took a little paint off. Okay. Move your salt out, get that board flat on the paper, and pick 2 analogous colors. So, the way your tray is laid out is colors are already analogous in front of you, okay? So these are side by side on the color wheel all the way across. So pick 2 that are side by side on the color wheel, rinse your brush, and we've done wet and wet before, but we're gonna try it again. So we're gonna slide this up so you can see it better. Remember when we did wet and wet, we got your entire paper wet first, and then we came in and we dropped in the color. Because this isn't quite the best watercolor paper, this is just practice paper, you're not gonna get the best bleed on this, but it will work. All right. Add some more. You want the colors to smush together so it's blending together fairly well. We don't want to see individual polka dots if we can at all help it. And we want the color to be relatively dark, and we want the paper to be wet. All right, so now I'm going to take my salt, and while it's still wet, I'm just going to sprinkle salt across the top. And wherever it's still wet, you're going to see how it picks up the color. It's going to bring that color together in certain spaces. And once that's done, you're just gonna brush off any extra salt, and we're gonna let that dry. All right, there's no way to see that until after it's completely dried out. Next one we're gonna do is we're gonna use the rubbing alcohol. So you're gonna take the pipette, you're gonna dip it in, you're gonna blow the bubbles, and then it's gonna pick up a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Or set it off to the side. Again, pick a color that's relatively dark. And if you want to do wet and wet again, you can. It's not an issue if you would like. Or you can paint one color and drop another color into it. So I'll show you another way of doing wet and wet. And a little bit of green. So I painted the blue first. Now I'm dropping the green in. It all has to be done pretty quickly though. Now, before it dries, take the pipette and just gently squeeze until it drips onto the paper, and you will notice that even if you just touch the tip of the pipette to the edge of the paper, it creates these crazy kind of crater donut-looking shapes. When you're done, squeeze out the rubbing alcohol. Okay, squeeze it out. Looks like I spilled a little bit. And put your lid on. Push it off to the side. All right, last one. Dry brush. You're gonna take your brush, you're gonna gently squish out the water, and then we're gonna flatten this out so it looks like a broom. And we want it to be all spread out like that. All right, so we want to see all the individual pieces, and we're going to flatten it out so that it's one flat piece. So when I turn it sideways, notice, all right, looks like a fan one way, totally flat the other. Now, pick a color, any color, and just gently dip the very, very tips of the brush into the color. Now, this is one of these techniques where you're going to keep your brush very vertical. Don't do this. Keep the brush vertical and drag it gently across your paper. It's going to create all these beautiful fine little lines, and as you do that, you can change colors, you can mix colors together. I can change directions. If your lines start to get too thick, you might have to go back and flatten it out again. All right, it doesn't like to stay that way. But you can use this for various things like fur, grass, hair, surface of water, rain, or just to create some cool designs by dragging one color, almost like plaid, dragging one color over another. All right, when you're done with all those, then you will be ready to get started on your project.